June 22, 1941. Hauptmann Klaus Weber adjusts his headset inside his Messerschmitt Bf 109 as radio chatter fills the cockpit. His squadron has just received reports of slow-moving Soviet aircraft approaching German positions near Minsk. Weber smirks, exchanging glances with his wingman. After dominating the skies over France and Britain, these Soviet pilots seem like easy prey. The Luftwaffe has established complete air superiority in just 3 days of Operation Barbarossa. What could possibly challenge the most experienced fighter pilots in the world? 6 months later, that same pilot sits in a debriefing room, hands trembling as he lights his third cigarette. The confident smirk has vanished, replaced by the hollow stare of someone who has witnessed something that defies everything he thought he knew about aerial combat. The slow Soviet aircraft he once mocked has become the stuff of nightmares, earning a nickname that sends chills through even the most seasoned German veterans: the flying tank. Operation Barbarossa, launched with unprecedented fury on June 22, 1941. 3 million German soldiers, supported by the world's most experienced air force, crashed into Soviet territory along an 1,800-mile front. The Luftwaffe destroyed over 1,200 Soviet aircraft in the first day alone, most caught on the ground. German pilots, fresh from victories over Poland, France, and Britain, expected another swift campaign. Their Messerschmitt Bf 109s had proven superior to every enemy fighter they encountered. The Hurricane, the Spitfire, even the latest French designs had fallen before German tactical superiority and technological advancement. Soviet aviation appeared to be in complete disarray. Obsolete I-16 fighters and ancient bombers fell like leaves before the German onslaught. Stalin's purges had decimated the experienced pilot corps, leaving inexperienced aviators flying outdated equipment. German intelligence reports painted a picture of an air force on the verge of collapse. Luftwaffe commanders planned for air superiority to be achieved within weeks, freeing their forces to support the rapid ground advance toward Moscow. But something unexpected began appearing over the battlefield in late 1941. Soviet aircraft, unlike anything German pilots had encountered before, started showing up in increasing numbers. These weren't the nimble fighters or vulnerable bombers they had grown accustomed to destroying. These aircraft flew low, attacked ground targets with devastating effect, and most disturbing of all, seemed to absorb punishment that would destroy any other aircraft. The Ilyushin Il-2 Shturmovik represented a revolutionary concept in military aviation. Designed by Sergei Ilyushin and his team beginning in 1938, this aircraft abandoned traditional thinking about the separation between armor and airframe. Instead of adding armor plates to protect vital components, Ilyushin integrated the armor directly into the aircraft's structure. The result was an armored shell weighing 700 kilograms that formed the actual backbone of the aircraft, protecting the engine, cockpit, radiators, and fuel tanks, while serving as the primary structural element. This armored bathtub, constructed from homogeneous armor steel AB1, ranged from 5 to 12 millimeters in thickness. The pilot sat within this steel cocoon, protected from small arms fire and shell fragments that would prove lethal to conventional aircraft. The engine compartment received similar protection, ensuring that the Mikulin AM-38 power plant could continue operating even after sustaining multiple hits. Unlike other aircraft where armor was an addition that reduced performance, the Il-2's armor was integral to its very existence. The aircraft carried formidable armament for its ground attack role. Two 23mm VYA-23 cannons provided devastating firepower against armored vehicles, while twin 7.62mm ШКS machine guns handled softer targets. External hardpoints could carry up to 8 RS-82 rockets, or 4 larger RS-132 rockets, each capable of destroying tanks with direct hits. The internal bomb bay accommodated up to 600 kilograms of bombs, including specialized anti-tank bomblets that would prove particularly effective against German armor. Joseph Stalin recognized the Il-2's potential immediately, declaring that the aircraft was as essential to the Red Army as air and bread. Production received the highest priority, with entire factories dedicated to manufacturing these flying tanks. By the time German forces encountered them in significant numbers, Soviet factories were producing over 1,000 Il-2s per month, a rate that would only increase as the war progressed. German pilots' first encounters with the Il-2 followed predictable patterns based on their extensive combat experience. Spotting the distinctive silhouette approaching at low altitude, Luftwaffe fighters would position themselves for standard attack runs. The Il-2's maximum speed of 410 kilometers per hour seemed laughably slow compared to the Bf-109's 570 kilometers per hour. German pilots expected quick, decisive engagements, resulting in easy victories to add to their mounting scores. Obergefreiter Hans Müller, flying his Bf-109F-4 near Smolensk in October 1941, spotted a formation of 3 Il-2s attacking German supply columns. Müller dove from altitude, lining up his gun sight on the lead aircraft. His 20mm MG-151-20 cannon and twin 7.92mm MG-17 machine guns opened fire at close range, sparks flying as rounds struck the Soviet aircraft. Müller expected to see the familiar sight of an enemy aircraft breaking apart or catching fire. Instead, the Il-2 continued its attack run, seemingly unaffected by the concentrated fire. Pulling up for another pass, Müller noticed his ammunition counter showing significant expenditure for no visible result. The Il-2 had absorbed his entire burst and was now turning toward him, its own guns blazing. Müller's aircraft shuddered as 23mm shells tore through his wing, forcing him to break off the engagement. As he limped back to base, Müller radioed his squadron leader with a report that would become increasingly common. Target hit multiple times, no visible effect, continuing mission. Similar encounters occurred across the Eastern Front, as German pilots discovered their standard tactics were ineffective against this new threat. Luftwaffe combat reports from late 1941 show a marked change in tone when describing engagements with Il-2s. Early reports confidently predicted easy victories, while later documents reveal growing frustration and concern about ammunition expenditure versus results achieved. The Il-2's armor protection exceeded anything German pilots had previously encountered. The 12mm steel plates protecting the cockpit could deflect direct hits from 20mm cannon shells unless they struck at perfect angles. The engine compartment's armor prevented the catastrophic failures that typically resulted from hits to the power plant. Even when German rounds penetrated the armor, the Il-2's robust construction often allowed it to continue flying and complete its mission. German ballistics tests conducted on captured Il-2s revealed the extent of the aircraft's protection. Standard 7.92mm armor-piercing rounds proved completely ineffective against the cockpit armor, barely scratching the steel surface. The 20mm MG-151-20 cannon, the Luftwaffe's primary fighter armament, could penetrate the armor only under ideal conditions with direct, perpendicular hits to specific areas. Even then, the thick steel often prevented complete penetration, leaving the aircraft damaged but flyable. Luftwaffe armorers began developing specialized ammunition specifically for engaging Il-2s. Tungsten core armor-piercing rounds showed improved penetration characteristics, but supplies remained limited throughout the war. Some German pilots resorted to attacking the Il-2's less protected rear section, but this required positioning themselves directly behind the aircraft, exposing them to return fire from the rear gunner position that was added to later Il-2 variants. Combat camera footage from German aircraft reveals the frustration of engaging Il-2s. Film shows German fighters making repeated attack runs on individual Shturmoviks, with visible hits sparking off the armor, while the Soviet aircraft continues its mission. In one documented encounter near Kursk, a single Il-2 absorbed hits from 3 different Bf-109s before finally being forced down, and even then, the pilot survived and was later rescued by Soviet forces. The psychological impact on German ground forces proved even more devastating than the aircraft's direct military effectiveness. Wehrmacht soldiers quickly learned to recognize the distinctive sound of the Mikulin AM-38 engine, a deep, throbbing noise that announced incoming death from above. Unlike high-altitude bombers that provided some warning, Il-2s attacked at treetop level, appearing suddenly over German positions with devastating effect. Gefreiter Otto Braun, serving with the 6th Panzer Division near Moscow, described his first encounter with attacking Il-2s in a letter home. The sound came first, like giant hornets approaching. Then we saw them, flying so low we could see the pilots' faces. Our anti-aircraft guns opened fire, but the planes kept coming. They dropped their bombs and fired their cannons, and when our fighters arrived, the Russian planes just absorbed the bullets like they were raindrops. German casualty reports from Il-2 attacks show the aircraft's effectiveness against both personnel and equipment. The 23mm cannons proved particularly devastating against soft-skinned vehicles and supply columns. The specialized PTAB anti-tank bomblets, introduced in 1943, could penetrate the top armor of even the heaviest German tanks. A single Il-2 could carry up to 192 of these small bombs, creating a carpet of destruction 70 meters long and 15 meters wide. The psychological warfare aspect became as important as the physical damage. German soldiers reported that the sound of approaching Il-2s caused panic among inexperienced troops. Veterans learned to recognize the engine noise from kilometers away, giving them precious seconds to seek cover. The aircraft's ability to absorb punishment and continue attacking created a sense of invulnerability that demoralized German forces already struggling with the harsh realities of the Eastern Front. Medical reports from German field hospitals show increased cases of combat fatigue and nervous disorders among troops repeatedly subjected to Il-2 attacks. The combination of the aircraft's fearsome reputation and its apparent invulnerability created psychological trauma that extended far beyond the immediate casualties inflicted by its weapons. German nicknames for the Il-2 evolved from initial mockery to grudging respect, and finally, to genuine fear. Early references called it the Iron Gustav, or Flying Coffin, suggesting it was a death trap for its own pilots. As the aircraft's effectiveness became apparent, German soldiers began calling it Schwarzer Tod, or Black Death, reflecting its dark camouflage and deadly reputation. Luftwaffe pilots developed their own terminology, referring to Il-2 formations as flying fortresses or armored swarms. The Luftwaffe was forced to develop new tactics specifically for engaging Il-2s. Standard fighter doctrine emphasized speed and maneuverability to achieve quick kills, but these advantages proved meaningless against an opponent that could absorb massive damage. German pilots learned to attack from specific angles, targeting the less protected areas around the engine cooling system or attempting to damage the control surfaces rather than achieving outright kills. Coordinated attacks became the preferred method, with multiple fighters engaging a single Il-2 simultaneously to overwhelm its defenses. However, this tactic required significant resources and often resulted in German fighters being caught by Soviet escort fighters. The introduction of dedicated fighter escorts for Il-2 formations further complicated German interception efforts, forcing them to fight through protective screens of Yak-1s and LAGG-3s before engaging the Shturmoviks. Some German units experimented with ground-based anti-aircraft defenses specifically configured for low-level attacks. The 20mm Flak 38 proved more effective than fighter-mounted weapons due to its higher muzzle velocity and ability to fire specialized ammunition. However, the Il-2's speed and low-altitude approach limited engagement windows, and many German positions lacked adequate anti-aircraft coverage. Hans-Ulrich Rudel, Germany's most famous Stuka pilot, encountered Il-2s frequently during his anti-tank missions. In his post-war memoirs, Rudel admitted that facing Shturmoviks was among the most dangerous missions he flew. They were like flying tanks, he wrote. You could hit them again and again and they would keep coming. It was unnerving to see an aircraft absorb so much punishment and continue fighting. German technical intelligence units made capturing intact Il-2s a high priority. Detailed examination of recovered aircraft revealed the sophisticated engineering behind the armor integration. German engineers expressed admiration for the innovative design while simultaneously working to develop countermeasures. However, the fundamental concept of integral armor proved impossible to defeat with existing weapons technology. The Soviet Union continuously improved the Il-2 throughout the war, addressing weaknesses identified through combat experience. The addition of a rear gunner in 1942 eliminated the aircraft's primary vulnerability to fighter attack from behind. Upgraded engines provided better performance, while improved armor distribution enhanced protection without significantly increasing weight. Soviet tactics evolved to maximize the Il-2's effectiveness while minimizing losses. Formation flying provided mutual protection, with aircraft covering each other during attack runs. Fighter escorts became standard procedure, forcing German interceptors to engage protective fighters before reaching the Shturmoviks. Target selection focused on high-value objectives, where the Il-2's unique capabilities provided maximum advantage. The Circle of Death tactic, developed during the Battle of Kursk, demonstrated Soviet tactical innovation. Up to 8 Il-2s would form a defensive circle, with each aircraft protecting the one ahead using forward-firing guns, while individual planes took turns leaving the circle to attack targets. This formation proved nearly impossible for German fighters to break, as attacking one Il-2 exposed the attacker to fire from multiple other aircraft. Soviet production efficiency meant that Il-2 losses, while significant, could be rapidly replaced. German intelligence estimated that Soviet factories were producing Il-2s faster than the Luftwaffe could destroy them. This industrial capacity, combined with the aircraft's inherent survivability, created an increasingly hopeless situation for German air defenses. By 1943, veteran German pilots openly acknowledged the Il-2 as one of their most feared opponents. Combat reports show a marked change in language when describing encounters with Shturmoviks. Early war reports used confident, aggressive terminology, while later documents revealed defensive thinking and emphasis on survival rather than victory. Oberst Werner Mölders, one of Germany's leading aces, privately admitted to colleagues that engaging Il-2s required completely different thinking from traditional fighter combat. "Against other aircraft, you hunt," he reportedly said. "Against the Shturmovik, you survive." This sentiment became widespread among Luftwaffe pilots as the war progressed, and Il-2 encounters became increasingly common. Post-war interviews with German pilots reveal the psychological impact of facing an apparently invulnerable opponent. Major Erich Hartmann, the highest-scoring ace in history, described Il-2 engagements as exercises in futility, where massive ammunition expenditure produced minimal results. The frustration of scoring multiple hits without achieving kills demoralized pilots accustomed to decisive victories. German military historians, writing after the war, acknowledged the Il-2's role in establishing Soviet air superiority over the Eastern Front. The aircraft's combination of survivability, firepower, and psychological impact created a weapon system that German forces never effectively countered. Unlike other Soviet aircraft that could be defeated through superior tactics or technology, the Il-2 represented a fundamental challenge to German air doctrine. The engineering brilliance of the Il-2 lay in its integration of armor with aerodynamic design. Traditional aircraft design treated armor as dead weight that reduced performance. Ilyushin's team made armor an integral structural element, creating an aircraft that was actually stronger and more rigid than conventional designs. This innovation allowed the Il-2 to maintain reasonable flight characteristics, despite carrying armor equivalent to a light tank. Weight distribution proved critical to the aircraft's success. The heavy armor was concentrated around the center of gravity, minimizing its impact on flight stability. The engine's position within the armored shell provided protection while maintaining proper balance. Even when damaged, the Il-2's robust structure often allowed continued flight, enabling pilots to return to base or reach friendly territory. Survivability statistics demonstrate the Il-2's exceptional durability. While exact figures vary, Soviet records indicate that Il-2s had significantly higher survival rates than other ground attack aircraft. Many Shturmoviks returned from missions with dozens of bullet holes and cannon strikes, testament to their ability to absorb punishment that would destroy conventional aircraft. Maintenance advantages became apparent as the war progressed. The Il-2's simple, robust construction allowed field repairs that would be impossible with more delicate aircraft. Damaged armor could be patched or replaced using basic metalworking tools. Engine changes could be accomplished quickly due to the modular design. This maintainability meant that Il-2 units could sustain high operational tempos despite battle damage. Cost-effectiveness analysis shows the Il-2's exceptional value. Despite its complex armor integration, the aircraft could be produced efficiently using standard industrial techniques. The cost per unit remained reasonable while providing capabilities that required multiple conventional aircraft to achieve. German economic analysts estimated that each Il-2 required the equivalent of 3 or 4 conventional fighters to neutralize, creating an unsustainable resource drain. The Il-2's legacy extends far beyond its wartime service. Total production reached 36,183 aircraft, making it the most produced military aircraft in history. This massive production run demonstrated Soviet industrial capacity, while providing the Red Army with a decisive tactical advantage. The aircraft's success influenced post-war attack aircraft design, with many nations adopting similar concepts of integral armor and specialized ground attack capabilities. German military historians, writing decades after the war, acknowledged the Il-2's decisive role in the Eastern Front campaign. The aircraft's ability to provide close air support while surviving intense defensive fire gave Soviet ground forces a significant advantage. German units found themselves unable to move during daylight hours in areas where Il-2s operated, severely limiting tactical flexibility. Modern military aviation still reflects lessons learned from the Il-2's success. Contemporary attack aircraft like the A-10 Thunderbolt II incorporate similar concepts of heavy armor protection and specialized anti-tank weapons. The principle of survivability through armor rather than speed or stealth continues to influence military aircraft design. Veteran testimonials from both sides provide insight into the Il-2's psychological impact. Soviet pilots described the confidence that came from flying an aircraft that could bring them home despite heavy damage. German soldiers recalled the demoralizing effect of seeing their most powerful weapons prove ineffective against the flying tank. The ultimate irony of the Il-2's story lies in the complete reversal of initial perceptions. German pilots who initially mocked the slow, ungainly aircraft as easy prey eventually came to fear it more than any other Soviet weapon. The transformation from object of ridicule to source of genuine terror demonstrates how technological innovation can overturn established military doctrine. The lessons learned from underestimating the Il-2 influenced German thinking throughout the remainder of the war. Intelligence reports began emphasizing the need to thoroughly evaluate new enemy weapons rather than making assumptions based on appearance or initial impressions. However, by the time these lessons were absorbed, the Il-2 had already established Soviet air superiority over much of the Eastern Front. Historical significance extends beyond the immediate military impact. The Il-2 represented a fundamental shift in air-ground warfare, demonstrating that specialized attack aircraft could survive and operate effectively in contested airspace. This concept influenced post-war military doctrine and continues to shape modern tactical aviation. The final statistics tell the story of the Il-2's impact on German operations. Luftwaffe loss rates increased dramatically when engaging Shturmoviks, while ammunition expenditure per kill reached unsustainable levels. German ground forces reported significantly higher casualty rates in areas where Il-2s operated regularly. The cumulative effect of these factors contributed to the eventual German defeat on the Eastern Front. Perhaps the most telling measure of the Il-2's success lies in the transformation of those who initially dismissed it. Klaus Weber, the confident pilot who smirked at reports of slow Soviet aircraft in June 1941, ended the war as a nervous, exhausted veteran who jumped at the sound of any low-flying aircraft. The flying tank had achieved something no other weapon could. It had turned the hunters into the hunted, transforming the masters of the sky into men who feared to look up. If you enjoyed learning about how the slow Il-2 Shturmovik became the most feared aircraft on the Eastern Front, please give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what other surprising World War II stories you'd like to see covered. Your support helps us bring more fascinating historical content to light, and if you're not already subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the untold stories of history. We've got plenty more incredible tales of military innovation, tactical surprises, and the human drama behind the world's greatest conflicts coming your way. What other underestimated weapons or technologies from World War II would you like us to explore next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below.